For 70 years, global trade became faster, cheaper, and more efficient with every decade. A world map animation shows global shipping routes becoming denser and more concentrated over the decades from 1950 to 2026. Companies replaced expensive warehouses with just-in-time delivery. Instead of stockpiling, inventory factories ordered parts to arrive exactly when needed. The part leaves the factory in Asia. It crosses the ocean on the most efficient route available. It arrives at the assembly plant in Europe or North America exactly when the production line needs it. No warehouse, no storage cost, no capital tied up in inventory sitting on shelves. A lean, ruthlessly optimized global machine. The entire system was built on one assumption, that the geographic shortcuts, the narrow sea lanes that make the shortest routes possible, would always be available, that the 18-mile wide passage between Yemen and the Horn of Africa would always be open, that the 21-mile wide gap between Iran and Oman would always allow tankers through. And then in late 2023, a group of fighters in one of the poorest countries on Earth discovered something the entire global supply chain optimization had missed. A drone that costs a few $1,000s can threaten a ship carrying $50 million of cargo. And the geography of efficiency, the same narrow passages that make the shortest routes possible, also makes every ship in them an accessible target from the surrounding land. The efficiency we built into the global supply chain created the vulnerability that is now exploiting it. Right now, in May 2026, the global shipping system is experiencing a double choke point. Two of the world's most critical maritime passages are simultaneously disrupted, and the system that was optimized to leave no slack has no slack left to absorb the shock. Subscribe to Where on Earth and hit the bell. Now let us understand the geography of how efficiency became a trap. A diagram shows how global shipping routes concentrate through narrow geographic passages as the most efficient paths between continents. The drive for efficiency in global shipping is fundamentally geographic. Ships travel between ports. The shortest route between ports is a straight line, but oceans are surrounded by continents. Continents block straight lines. The shortest practical route between Asia and Europe is not a straight line across the ocean. It is a series of geographic passages through the narrowest gaps between continents. Through the Strait of Malacca between Malaysia and Indonesia, through the Indian Ocean, through Bab el-Mandeb between Yemen and Djibouti, up the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal across Egypt, into the Mediterranean, to European ports. This route through Bab el-Mandeb and Suez cuts approximately 7,000 nautical miles off the alternative route around the southern tip of Africa. It saves approximately 10 to 14 days of sailing time. It saves approximately $1 million in fuel costs per voyage for a large container ship. The economic logic is overwhelming. Every shipping company uses this route. Every supply chain planner builds this route into their delivery calculations, and every shipping company funnels its cargo through the same 18-mile wide gap between Yemen and the Horn of Africa. That geographic concentration is the efficiency, and it is the vulnerability. Now let us understand the asymmetry that makes geographic choke points so dangerous. A Houthi drone launch site in Yemen sends a small one-way attack drone toward the Red Sea shipping lane. The Houthis are not a navy. They have no aircraft carriers, no submarines, no destroyer-class warships. They are a non-state armed group controlling territory in one of the world's poorest countries. Their weapons for attacking shipping in the Red Sea include one-way attack drones costing a few $1,000s, anti-ship cruise missiles supplied by Iran with ranges of approximately 200 kilometers, and anti-ship ballistic missiles also of Iranian origin. These weapons cost a fraction of what they threaten. A single Houthi drone costs in the range of $1,000 to $3,000 to produce. Intercepting it with a naval missile costs between $100,000 and $1 million. The asymmetry is extraordinary. The Houthis can fire drones at a cost of thousands per weapon. The naval task forces protecting shipping must intercept them at a cost hundreds of times higher, and the ship they are protecting might be carrying a cargo worth $50 million. The geography makes this asymmetry devastating. Bab el-Mandeb is 18 miles wide. Every ship passing through is within 9 miles of the Yemeni coast. A 200-kilometer range missile covers the entire strait and the approaches to it. There is nowhere in the passage to hide from the geography. The same narrowness that makes the route efficient makes every ship in it a target. By March 2026, Houthi forces possessed anti-ship missiles with 200-kilometer range. This means every vessel in the southern Red Sea and approaches to Bab el-Mandeb is within range simultaneously, not just vessels in the strait itself. Every vessel for 200 kilometers around it. The geographic kill zone has expanded to cover the entire regional sea lane. Now let us understand the economic consequences already visible in 2026. Major shipping companies Maersk MSC Hapag-Lloyd and CMA CGM reroute their container ships around Africa's Cape of Good Hope rather than through Bab el-Mandeb.
The Cape of Good Hope route adds approximately 3,500 nautical miles to each journey, approximately 10 to 14 days of additional sailing time, and approximately $1 to $1.8 million in additional fuel costs per round trip. Asia-Europe freight rates are running 25 to 40% above pre-crisis levels. War risk insurance premiums for vessels attempting Red Sea transit have soared more than 1,000% since the crisis began. Rerouting a single container ship adds $1 million in extra fuel and at least 10 days to the journey, according to Maersk. The cost to ship a standard 40-foot container from Shanghai to Genoa rose from approximately $1,400 in November 2023 to over $6,000 at the height of the disruption. Every consumer in Europe who buys a product shipped from Asia is paying the geography premium of Bab el-Mandeb being unsafe. Approximately 12% of all global seaborne trade normally passes through Bab el-Mandeb and the Suez Canal. This includes 40% of the world's vacuum cleaner trade, 25% of microwaves, 22% of washing machines, a third of European imports. The narrowest waterway in the global supply chain is the gateway for 1/3 of everything that arrives in Europe from Asia. Now let us understand the double choke point crisis happening right now. A map shows both the Strait of Hormuz at the top of the Persian Gulf and Bab el-Mandeb at the southern end of the Red Sea, both highlighted simultaneously as disrupted zones. In late February 2026, the United States and Israel launched strikes on Iran. Iran moved to restrict access to the Strait of Hormuz. The International Energy Agency declared it the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Hormuz carries 20% of the world's oil. Saudi Arabia attempted to redirect oil shipments through Bab el-Mandeb as an alternative.
Saudi crude that normally exits through Hormuz began flowing southward through the Red Sea via Bab el-Mandeb instead. And then on March 28, 2026, the Houthis fired their first missile attack on Israel since the wider regional war began. Their military spokesman said directly, "Our fingers are on the trigger." Iran's former foreign minister posted explicitly that if the White House dares to repeat its foolish mistakes, it will soon realize that the flow of global energy and trade can be disrupted with a single move. The threat is direct. The infrastructure for a blockade at Bab el-Mandeb is already in place. If the Houthis fully reactivate their Red Sea campaign, the oil being rerouted around Hormuz through Bab el-Mandeb would face threats at both ends of its journey. An analysis published by the Observer Research Foundation calculated that a combined Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb closure would block approximately 30% of global container shipping from normal routing and threaten approximately 22% of the world's oil supply. The combined trade at risk $10 billion per day. 45 million more people could be pushed into acute food insecurity. Countries like Bangladesh entered this crisis with fuel reserves of just 9 to 14 days. Sudan imports approximately 80% of its wheat through this region. Somalia has already experienced a 20% rise in essential commodity prices since the conflict began. The geometry of the global supply chain was built on the assumption that both passages would be available. The scenario where both are simultaneously disrupted was assumed to be so extreme as to be practically impossible. It is the scenario being contemplated right now. Now let us understand why the alternatives are insufficient. A map shows the Middle Corridor land route across Central Asia connecting China to Europe as an alternative to maritime routes. Global trade has known about Chokepoint vulnerability for decades. Enormous investment has gone into alternative routes. The Belt and Road Initiative built railway infrastructure across Central Asia and the Middle East. The Middle Corridor, a land route running from China through Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia and Turkey to Europe, has been developed as a partial alternative. Trans-Caspian shipping routes connect Central Asian countries to Turkish ports bypassing both Hormuz and the Suez Corridor. But these alternatives face fundamental geographic limitations. Railway freight can move approximately 1,000 tons per train. A single container ship carries the equivalent of hundreds of trains. The throughput capacity of land routes cannot replace the volume capacity of maritime routes at any price point that makes commercial sense for most goods. The Middle Corridor can handle perhaps 10 million tons of cargo per year at current capacity. The Suez Canal Corridor handles approximately 600 million tons per year. The land alternatives are valuable supplements. They cannot be substitutes. This is the fundamental geographic trap of the efficiency system. The maritime choke points process volumes of cargo that land routes cannot replicate. The only viable maritime alternative to the Suez Corridor is the Cape of Good Hope, and the Cape route is already being used at scale by major carriers who abandoned the Red Sea in 2024. The system has already shifted to its backup. There is no backup to the backup. Now let us understand the supply chain transformation being forced by geography. Global supply chain managers shifting from just-in-time to just-in-case inventory management in warehouse facilities worldwide. The efficiency model that built the current global supply chain was called just-in-time. Parts and products arrive exactly when needed. No warehousing, no inventory buffer. The choke point crisis of 2024 to 2026 is forcing companies toward a different model. Just-in-case. Maintain larger inventory buffers. Source from multiple suppliers in different geographic locations. Build regional supply chains that reduce dependence on choke point vulnerable transoceanic routes. Apple has been diversifying its manufacturing from China to India and Vietnam, partially reducing its dependence on China to US shipping routes through the Malacca and Hormuz corridors. European manufacturers are investing in domestic or nearshore production to reduce transoceanic supply chain exposure. The efficiency costs of just-in-case are significant. More inventory, more warehousing, higher costs. But the cost of being caught in a just-in-time system when a choke point closes is higher. The efficiency trap is being recognized, and the geographic reality is forcing a rethink of a supply chain model that assumed the choke points would always be open. The geography of the global economy did not change. The assumption that geography could be perfectly optimized away has proved false. The Bab el-Mandeb is 18 miles wide. It will always be 18 miles wide. The land on either side will always be close enough to threaten ships passing through. The efficiency of the route will always make it attractive, and the geographic concentration of that efficiency will always make it vulnerable. The world built the most efficient supply chain in human history. It forgot to ask what happens when the geography it was built on stops cooperating. Subscribe to Where on Earth for weekly geography that reveals the forces governing the world economy right now. Hit the bell and drop your thoughts in the comments below, because the world looks very different when you understand the geography of the efficiency trap.